So, very good evening to all the participants who have joined us today for this live session through the Zoom portal or through live streaming on YouTube. I am Shubham from Team Webtel, and on behalf of my company, I'm very glad to see this number. Your people joined us for this wonderful session today on e-invoicing. Before beginning the session, I would like to mention a couple of rules. For the people who have joined us through Zoom panel, you're requested to kindly switch off your videos mode for a better bandwidth for all of us. And in case you have any queries in regarding the session, or if you need to type something, we have the chat section, chat facility available. You can use it and we'll take the questions in a collaborative way. First, I would like to introduce our organization, Webtel, which is a 2-decade-old e-compliance company. We have various products from compliances, starting from TDS tax, goldmine GST, to products specifically for professionals like Virtual Office, a website for professionals, office management tool, WebEdge, work at home softwares, WA, to companies for corporates, softwares for corporates, pardon, HR Pulse, WebEsign, digital signatures, and much more. Webtel, since 2017, is a certified ASP GSP providers. So we are a one-stop solution for all your GST needs. Today's session, as we all are aware, is on e-invoicing. And for e-invoicing, Webtel is the best solution to go with. We are making firms having turnover more than 100 crores, or be it anyone who's going to be mandatory. We're making them ready in 7 days. So now the question arises, why choose us? So these are the small pointers which I want you to go through. We integrate with almost all ERPs for the bulk generation of IRNs, data validations. Our solution is the best. Along with that, it's very cost effective. We provide a desktop based solution, so it's very secured, and we have specialized team for each and every customer, a very integrated support team, so that in case of any query, you have the right person to help you with. As I already mentioned, our solution for e-invoicing and GST is compatible with most of the ERPs, be it SAP, Navision, Oracle, or Tally, Busy, Finsys, or maybe any in-house ERPs. We are there to integrate it. This is a small glimpse of how the integration process takes place from various softwares. We have various options of integrations like API, FTP, Excel mapping, direct integration. We also have a web application, and we integrate using our GSP services directly to NIC portal. I think Rajiv ji will take care of this part later in the webinar. Here is a glimpse of the big corporates which are using our softwares. We have a family of more than 10,000 big corporates, SMEs and professional firms who are using our ASP GSP solutions, including the e-invoicing solutions. So we are serving these companies from a long time, and we have the global brands with us. Without wasting much of time now, I would like to introduce the speaker of today. Before mentioning about the speaker, I would like to thank Tatvam Advisors, who are a knowledge partner for this session. And we have Geetika Shrivastava ji for today's session. By profession, Ms. Geetika Shrivastava ji is a chartered accountant and holds more than 11 years of experience in the field of indirect taxation. She has worked with Lakshmi Kumaran and Sridharan, and she is also an ex-PwC and has now joined the team of Tattvam Advisors as an executive partner. She has worked for clients across sectors ranging from oil and gas, telecommunication, banking, e-commerce, FMCG, etc. We are very glad to have you again, Geetika ji.
Thanks for the introduction, Shubham.
And along with her, we have CA Rajiv Khandelwal ji, who will be the moderator of today's session. Over to you, Geetika ji.
Thank you, Shubham. I'll just quickly share the screen. Is it visible for everyone?
Yes, it is absolutely.
Okay. So first of all, a very warm welcome to all the participants who are sparing their time at this hour of the day when you are towards the closure of the business hours and you are willing to learn something new from us. And all the credit goes to the Webtel team who has been time and again, organizing these webinars and learning sessions to educate our fellow members in the industry as well as the industry people themselves who may not be the chartered accountants, but they are actually working on ground. So before I start, I just wanted to set the context. Like Shubham has already mentioned that this today's session is around the e-invoicing. There could be some participants who have already implemented or who would have done it before, because it's not a new topic which has come into the discussion today. It's been there since the April 2020. We have been discussing about e-invoicing. A lot of changes have also happened during the implementation phase. There is one phase of taxpayers who have already gone live with the implementation of e-invoicing. Those are the taxpayers who are above turnover of 500 crores. So the question that comes is why we have kept today's session. Like our invite had already mentioned, that while 500 crores and above taxpayers were already falling within the ambit of generating the e-invoices, another set of taxpayers which were above 100 crores but below 500 crores, so those taxpayers were still given some time gap to generate the e-invoice or get the e-invoicing system implemented in their business system. So today's seminar is mainly for those people who have not yet learned anything about the e-invoicing. So there would be certain very basic concepts which we'll be discussing, and we would be having some participants who would be knowing the basics. So please pardon and excuse us for those repetition, but the intention is to educate those people who have not yet even discussed or understood the basics of the e-invoicing. So going forward, just a minute, I'll just close the screen. Shubham, how can I just, push this up?
Yeah, you can just select the green part and move it upwards at the top of the screen. Is it fine now?
No, I think. Is this visible to you as well or no?
No.
Oh, then it's fine. I thought it might be, distracting for the team members.
No.
Okay. So this is the agenda that we are going to cover today, the meaning and the objectives of the e-invoicing. There are certain myths around the entire concept of e-invoicing. So we'll discuss what are those myths and what are the actual facts, or what the law lays down. Then what will be the applicability and the modes of generation. Then we'll touch upon certain intricacies and the disputes and industry related issues that are coming up with the people who have even started or will be starting the implementation. And we'll just quickly touch upon the action points for you, the clients, like the participants, how they can do and what they need to do. So what is e-invoicing? E-invoicing is nothing. It is just the reporting of the details of the tax invoices, the GST documents they say, but it's basically the tax invoice that we generate in our day-to-day life for the taxable supplies that we are making. So what is to be done? We have to submit certain specific details of these tax invoices to the government portal. And once those invoice details have been submitted, there will be a unique reference number which is going to come back from the portal, and it will also come with a QR code. That number is something which we need to generate through the government portal and get the number printed on the invoice. It is not that the government is going to generate the invoice for you. The invoice has to be generated by the SSCs, the taxpayers. The only requirement is to send the details of those invoices to get a unique number from the government portal. So if you see the diagram on the slide, what has to be done? You have to generate the invoice with the required particulars as per the GST law in your system, the ERP software that you already have in your business. Then you'll have to convert it into a JSON format, then send it to the government portal. Government is going to, using certain algorithms and certain specific mandatory fields, which has already been given in the schema. Using those details, government is going to generate the unique number, and they will bring it back to you in the form of this e-invoice format. So it might not be very clearly visible, but I'll just tell you the basic things. There'll be one IRN number. This is a 60-digit number which is going to come, and it is going to come along with the QR code. So this QR code is something like a bar, something like a scanning code, like today we already have with the various payment systems. This QR code will, once you scan it, it will have certain details. All this has been specified by the government, which we'll discuss in the subsequent slides. Now, there has been a lot of buzz and discussion around this entire concept of e-invoicing. That why is there a need of e-invoicing? We are already having internal systems. Why should we do? And or we are already doing the compliances. Why another set of compliances? Why should we do it? So these are the broad 4 objectives from basis which this e-invoice system has been developed. One, the government needs some real-time updation of information. So today, whatever you are generating as your supplies or whatever supplies you're making, you do a monthly reporting, whether it's GSTR1 and when you make the GSTR3B payments. So government is in the process of collecting various level of data. So they have a different, ideas and different objectives when they talk about the data. So they want some real-time updation that the minute a business is generating any tax invoice, they need to know that a particular supply has been made and the details of that supply has been reported in the system. Another objective the government is that because the taxpayers have been grappling with so many compliances, that monthly compliances, then there is e-way bill compliances, there are many other annual returns, etc. So government thought that let's build certain system which can help the taxpayers, because the whole concept or the whole objective of bringing GST was ease of doing business, which later on people started crying and maybe cribbing about that it's not an ease of doing business, it's only adding on to my compliances, my entire month goes into doing the compliances. So after having a lot of discussions and looking the global pattern, because this concept is already prevailing in various countries outside India, so they thought let's bring this concept. So what happens is that when you generate the e-invoice or the IRN number from for the supplies that you're making, this data is going to be pre-populated in the GSTR1, which is going to be there in the system, the GST portal. And also they will populate the part A of the e-way bill. The part A of the e-way bill is about the details of the goods which are moving. So it will populate those details also. So tomorrow, if you have at the month end, when you are going to do your compliances, you need not re-enter those details, because today what is happening, you do monthly compliances, you pull out the data, do the data sanitization, hygiene check, etc., etc., and then you push the data for the portal to the portal for the generation of GSTR1. So this is going to help the taxpayers to have a pre-populated data, at a very extreme scenario, there could be certain situations where there's some changes have happened, which, you know, taxpayers can quickly go and see the mapping and matching. And if everything is fine, they can just push the GSTR1 and file it without doing the same activity which they had already done. And similarly for the e-way bill, if the party of e-way bill is already fulfilled, then you just need to quickly match before generating that the details which is coming is correct, there is no clerical error, etc. Because if we understand that the first point of data entry is the generation of invoice only, it is that first step basis which you generate your e-way bill, basis which you generate your or prepare your GSTR returns. So if this is correct, then everything corresponding to that will also be correct. So this is something which again the government has thought to make it easy for the taxpayers to do their monthly compliances. Third one, it again reduces the reconciliation issues. So what happens most of the time, at least in past 2 years or 3 years of the experience which we have seen, is sometimes data entry or clerical errors happen. And when you do the return filing, you realize that there was some error in the invoice. The error could be relating to the HSN code which has been used. It could be relating to the rate that has been, you know, mentioned on the invoice. So what happens is that in your financials, there is one data which is coming, and when you file your returns, you do that changes manually and you submit the return again. Or maybe at the time of 3B you do some changes because you have to pay the taxes, so you do the changes in the 3B, you even forget in GSTR1. So what happens is there are a lot of reconciliation issues which come tomorrow when department takes the comparison of your financials, your 1 and 3B. There's also going to be the gap. With this e-invoicing, at least to the level of the information that you are pushing into the system, all that gets correspondingly populated in the various compliance requirements, and therefore the reconciliation issues get minimized. So if you make any change in your ERP, the same changes will happen for the GSTR1 also. So if any information put in the ERP, you get the IRN from the government portal. Government takes that information, push it to the GSTR1 and your e-way bill portal, and therefore the chances of having clerical errors which happen all the time or most of the time when you do the data entry, those gets very minimized, and the chances or maybe the instances of having the final data is higher as compared to what we are having today. And the last and not the least one, the reduction of tax evasion efficiency in tax administration by eliminating fake invoices. I think we all have read a lot of news items in past 6, 7, 8 months that there has been a lot of fake invoices which is going in the entire ecosystem. The only intention is to give the fake credits to the people, and there is a lot of scam which is going. We keep on reading day in day out about the various professionals being charged with the non-compliances. So this is how the government would want to check that if there is any fake invoice in the system, that person is going to report it. And the minute you report it, you are there in the eyes of the law, the law makers and the administration. You cannot escape just by making a fake invoice and taking the credit away. So these are the broad objectives with which the e-invoicing concept has been introduced, and I hope we would all really appreciate the intention of the government, that why they have brought in. The intention is to reduce the malified activities which are going into the system, and also they somehow easing it out for the businesses to do their compliances. Now, like I mentioned, that there are a lot of myths around the generation of e-invoicing or the entire e-invoicing concept. One of the favorite question which comes is, which I also touched upon in the first slide itself, whether the invoice is going to be generated by the government portal. The answer is no. The government is only taking the information of the invoice or the details of the invoices. The process that you have been following today for the billing or generating invoices in your business scenarios or business organizations continue to remain the same. You are not going to be dependent on the government portal for them to generate the invoice. So they will only use the details and give you that unique invoice reference number, and that number and the QR code needs to be printed on the invoice before you issue it to your customers. Second point, like I mentioned, that people think that the minute there is another requirement from the law, it increases the compliances. On the contrary, it is going to reduce the compliances if you do the invoicing details correctly. your GSTR1 gets pre-populated, your e-way bill gets pre-populated, and therefore you will not have to re-enter the data, which in most of the cases, like I mentioned, also leads to a lot of clerical errors. And sometimes it also about making changes at the last minute when you're filing your returns. So all those transactions will get minimized. The business becomes prudent at the stage one itself. Exceptions can always be kept aside, but in normal general scenario, people will not have the tendency ki let's do whatever is required for the law for now, then at the time of filing return we'll make the changes. So that kind of an attitude needs to change. If you are doing something, issuing any invoice in the system, at that very first step, please ensure that every information that you're pushing to the government portal is correct. Because two things: one, it is going to the government, they get to know what is the information that you are doing, what is the business or the supplies you are making, and secondly, it will lead on to for you to keep on making the changes of the pre-populated return. So then you will come back and say, it's increasing my compliances. So the first data entry point should be correct, which will lead to consequential all the correct data entries. Third point is something which is a consequent question from the first point, that we don't need any billing software. The answer is no. Your existing billing software, etc., will still be required. You will have to generate it. Yes, there would be certain changes that would be required in your billing software, because there are certain mandatory fields which are required by the ERP, the e-invoicing portal, IRP portal, for generation of IRN number. In case that information is not currently coming in your ERP, that needs to be upgraded or updated in your ERP. But certainly the current ERP systems and the software that you're using for the billing and the invoicing should continue. So please don't discontinue any of your software agreements, etc., thinking that the government is going to do the job for you. It's your job, you only have to do it. Another point which was coming, that in past we have seen that because initial period the system was setting up, there was a lot of technical issues which were coming up, returns filing got delayed and all. So a lot of industry members, they came up with this issue that this is going to take a lot of time, and if it's going to take a lot of time, it's going to lead to the business disruption. So when we went back to the GST and we have asked them, we checked with them, in their testing portal they have assured that IRN generation will be almost near to real time. And for past 1 month, we have seen that the taxpayers who were above 500 crore limit, till date, none of them have faced any issue except for very minute technical issues, and those are always teething issues which keep on happening when the new system comes in play. Other than that, none of these delay in generation of IRN or any time lapse, etc., happen, which led to disruption for any business scenario. So rest assured that if the government is taking up the generation of IRN at their end, they are ensuring that they have the enough capability and enough bandwidth and infrastructure to get you the IRN with at the minimum possible time, so that you can issue the invoices as per your scheduled time. Another doubt which came up, that IRN is going to be used instead of the invoice number. The answer is no. Invoice number which you have been generating in your system continues to be there. So whatever series, whatever format you have been following, continue to follow that format. But in fact, this invoice number is going to be used by the government to generate the IRN. So please don't think that without giving the invoice, in fact, it's one of the mandatory fields for generating the IRN. So don't think that you need not generate the invoice number, or when it is the IRN number is coming back, then you can do away with the invoicing system, etc. So it's all in loop. You have to generate your own invoice number. This will be used by the government portal to generate the invoice reference number. In fact, if you see, the term is invoice reference number. They don't say that it's an invoice number. So your invoice, it's invoice reference number, which will come back to you for future references. Now the question comes about the applicability of e-invoicing, to whom all it is applicable, who needs to do it, etc., etc. Like I said earlier, that the requirement for generation of IRN had already been made applicable for the taxpayers who were having turnover more than 500 crores. Now, this is the second phase for the implementation of e-invoicing, where the taxpayers who have exceeded the turnover of 100 crores have been brought into the ambit, for which the due date has been set up as the 1st January 2021. So if you see that today we are on 26th November, we are hardly left with, some time. So this is the timeline which the government has prescribed, and we need to be ready with that timeline and be prepared with the implementation. Now the question which is a very unique, or maybe a very common question which has been coming up, that which financial year turnover should be taken. This was always in doubt, that because the law has not mentioned it should be the preceding financial year or the coming financial year. So after a lot of discussions and all, this has been clarified, and the notification to that effect has also been issued by the government, that any financial year with the effect from the implementation of the GST, if in any financial year your turnover exceeds 100 crore, then you are falling within the ambit. So for example, 2017 July till 2018, or maybe till today, during any financial year you had exceeded the 100 crore turnover. Even if you are not going to, you are not exceeding in the previous year or in the coming year, you foresee that your turnover is not going to exceed 100 crore, because we all know we are all facing a very difficult situation today, and that's affected a lot of businesses. So it's not that you'll be excused or maybe exempted from generation of e-invoicing. If any time in the previous financial years from the 2017 July you exceeded 100 crore, you are falling within this requirement, and therefore you need to be prepared for the generation of the e-invoicing. Government has been kind enough to give certain exemption. The exemptions have been given to the SEZ units. The units which are operating under the SEZs, they need not generate the invoices. Then the suppliers who are into exhibition of cinematography film, the cinema halls, etc., they have been exempted. The whole simple reason is that they deal with a lot of customers, and it's more like a B2C supplies, and it's very difficult for them to generate so many e-invoices. So for now they have been exempted. Let's see in future if they are brought in within the ambit. For the similar reasons, insurance company, banking companies, etc., have also been exempted, because again they have a very large base of customers, and I would not say that they don't have business customers, but largely the customers are the non-business customers. So if you see that today also the requirement has been enforced for the B2B supplies, then you are making a supply to a registered person. For B2C, there is a separate requirement, and there is certain relaxation for taxpayers falling beyond 100 crore, which we'll discuss in the subsequent slides. Then people who are into the passenger transport services like airlines, railways, etc., they have also been exempted for the similar reasons, that they have very huge number of customer database, and it's very difficult to have those invoices generated on a very frequent manner. And
excuse me, Geetika, there was a question whether if the turnover in the current year has already exceeded the specified limit of 500 crores or 100 crores later on. So whether in that case also e-invoicing will be applicable or not?
Absolutely. So like I said that the limit has been set with effect from July 17. So if from July 17 till today, in any of the financial year, if you have exceeded the 100 crore aggregate turnover, then you need to get the e-invoicing generated.
Okay, thank you.
Does it answer the question?
Yeah. Geetika ma'am, a couple of questions regarding the same thing is also coming out. The turnover is PAN based or GSTN based?
Turnover is PAN based. You have
for a company as a whole, we will have to see.
Yes, you have to see it as a company. As a company, the aggregate turnover has to be seen. It is not that one unit is exceeding and other is not exceeding, so therefore the other unit gets exempted.
Thank you, ma'am. Sanjeev ji and Mohan ji, I hope your doubts are clear.
Current financial year, I think because the government is specifically set for 17-18, 18-19 and 19-20. So if it is exceeding in the current financial year, I think in the next year it will become applicable. Geetika, what do you think?
No, sir, I think it becomes applicable from this financial year itself, because they have not mentioned that it is going to be the preceding financial year, which is what I touched upon earlier also. There has been the notification also to that effect. So let's say in like I took an example also, if in previous financial year you have already exceeded this limit, and in today's financial year, considering the today's scenario, if you feel that you'll not be able to exceed the 100 crore time limit rupees threshold, still, because in the previous year you were already exceeding 100 crore, you still need to follow. Now, similarly, in the current financial year, if you have already exceeded 100 crore, so you know that the limit has already got exceeded. So you need to generate the invoicing even for this year, once this becomes applicable from 1st January.
Okay. RCM you'll cover later on because there are some questions on RCM also.
We can touch upon, I have not kept any specific slide, we can definitely touch upon.
They're asking under RCM, who is liable for e-invoice?
Okay, in case of RCM, if the supplier is already a registered taxpayer, then he will generate the invoice, because today also he is going to generate a tax invoice as per the GST law. So any person who is generating the tax invoice under GST law has to generate the e-invoicing if he is exceeding the 100 crore threshold. In case your supplier is an unregistered supplier, then the liability to generate the invoice, etc., is on the recipient. So it has been very much clarified by the government authorities that there is no need to generate the e-invoice in case of RCMs when you are generating a self-invoice. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. Shubham, you want to take any more questions or we can proceed?
I think, sir, we can proceed, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one exemption, we have GTA. So GTAs have been specifically exempted from generating the invoices, even if they are the registered persons. So this is one specific example. Now, if I take an example of a law firm, which is required to get registered under GST for, let's say, some services which is not exempt or which is not falling outside the taxability. So in those cases, even if the law firms, the services provided by law firm are chargeable under RCM, if they are registered under GST and they are issuing invoices, then they would also be required to generate the IRN and e-invoicing. Only requirement for the recipient is to discharge the taxes. Now, taking an example of an advocate, an individual advocate who's only doing the representational services or doing the advocacy, those guys are not required to take registration. So they become the unregistered tax suppliers. In those cases, they are not even generating the invoices under GST. So the requirement to generate invoice has been passed on to the recipient, which we in general term, we are calling them as the self-invoicing. So for self-invoicing, the government in their FAQs have clarified that there is no need for generating any IRN number or e-invoicing for that.
Geetika, there is still doubt about the current year, and
Yeah.
I am looking at the notification number 71 of 30th of September.
Yes.
It states that for the words a financial year, the words and figures any preceding financial year from 17-18 onward shall be substituted. So I think that the current year, if it exceeds, then in the next year it will become applicable. Any change because the specific notification is there, because it talks about any preceding financial year from 17-18 onwards.
Sir, I think the preceding financial year, when they say, okay, maybe I'll need to check that once again, because the issue was regarding the taxability if you have not exceeded the turnover in the current financial year, but you have exceeded in the preceding financial year. So maybe I'll need to check that language.
Because people are continuously asking about that, because that's relevant to some of them at least. So okay, we can probably get back to.
We'll park this. We'll park this for now, and maybe I'll just legally check whether the preceding financial is typically a preceding financial year they want to take it as, or it's like during any financial year which is in the preceding period, and if it's this year also, then it would fall. So I'll just confirm that and get back to you.
Sure, you can proceed, please. Now.
Sure.
Sir, we have a questions regarding IRN.
That will be taken later on, Shubham.
Sure.
Yeah. So this gives you a brief snapshot. The turnover, the taxpayers whose turnover is exceeding 100 crore but less than 500 crore, for them the e-invoicing has been made applicable, but and that is only for B2B supplies. But there was one requirement of generating the QR code for B2C supplies that has not yet been made applicable for this set of taxpayers. So for now, we need to focus only on the B2B supplies. Just for the benefit of the larger audience, I would just mention that for the people who were crossing the turnover of 500 crores, and when the invoicing implementation happened for them the requirement was to have the IRN and QR code generated on the B2B supplies, and also to generate a dynamic QR code for the B2C, the B2C supplies, which is unregistered supplies to the unregistered persons. So this second requirement of generating the dynamic QR code for the unregistered supplies has yet not been made applicable for this set of taxpayers, which is falling within the bracket of 100 crore to 500 crore. Now, modes of generation, I'll just, set the context. This is something which Rajiv sir will give you some more insights about when he'll discuss about the solution. So only for the understanding how this IRN is going to be generated, usually for any software, the government which has, any application or any requirement that the government has been generating, has been issuing for the GST compliances, they have always brought in the online as well as an offline mechanism. So you normally online is something when you go onto the portal, whether through solution or directly through the portal, you give us the details and it gets generated on, parallelly it's submitted and reported, etc. Offline, the utility, like we have always been saying in all the various compliances, you download the utility, you fill in the details, and then you upload the JSON files. So here there is a very specific requirement, or I would say a very different requirement or facility that the government has brought in, that instead of putting in data manually, there is a direct API based integration with the IRP, the government portal, where you can have the API calls between the government portal and your ERP, and the data that you enter will keep on getting transmitted to the IRP portal for generation of IRN. Then in this case, you may not require any ASP or a JSP. You can directly integrate your softwares with the government portal. The second is the API integration through the ASPs and GSPs, like we have been taking the services in cases of monthly returns. It's something similar to that. It's just one more gateway in between, which helps you in doing certain various hygiene check and filtration, which may not be so efficiently done if it is done under direct API mode. The third one is the offline utility for bulk generation, which we have seen in past also, downloading the utilities and all. So how this is going to function and how this is working, how this works, Rajiv sir is going to tell you in detail when he'll take up the demo of the solution. Now, this is a very brief snapshot of the requirements of the e-invoicing. So if you see the right-hand side, it's a very big table. It has certain mandatory, conditional, mandatory, and optional fields, etc. And if you see on the right side end, it looks like, you need to have some 133 fields. So don't be scared with that 133 number. It is only after taking into account various business scenarios, because different business people would have different business scenarios, and there would be certain fields which would be mandatory and not so mandatory, but people would want to report. So for us to see is important is to see the mandatory fields and the conditional mandatory fields. So these are the fields which you need to ensure that it is there before you generate the IRN. Otherwise, you'll get the validation error. So if you see the glimpse of certain mandatory fields, like, there should be buyer details clearly given, the document details, whether it is invoice, it is debit note or a credit note, then the item details should be there, bill to ship to details should be there, total value details, etc. So these are certain mandatory fields which should be there. And wherever the fields are not mandatory and optional, you can opt to leave them.
Geetika, somebody is asking whether what is the difference between mandatory and non-mandatory? Some examples if we could give.
Okay, so mandatory means if you see this table, you can see the examples. Like in case of mandatory fields, let's say there are buyer details. So there are very specific buyer details which have been asked, like GSTIN number of the buyer if it's a registered supplier. So it's a GSTIN number, their address, etc. So within that, there are certain more details. Let's say in the address, the PIN code has been made the mandatory. And correct me, Shubham, if I'm right, initially the address was also mandatory, but now the address itself is not so mandatory, right? It has become optional. Now the only
I think basically all the things normally which are there in the invoice, in a normal invoice, like GSTIN of the buyer, GSTIN of the supplier, quantity, HSN, all these things are mandatory. Other things like the expiry date, etc., the batch number, which are there in case of certain industries like pharmaceuticals, those are optional because they are not there in all the invoices.
Exactly. Right. And like you can see that e-way bill details. So let's say if you are generating a service invoice, there would not be any requirement to generate the e-way bills. So then you will not have an e-way bill. So it's an optional. So only a supplier who's dealing in goods Again, for him also, it is not a mandatory. He may opt to give those details so that the data can be populated on the e-way bill portal for generating the Part A. So this is the difference between the mandatory and non-mandatory. And if you see the schema in detail,
Geetika ma'am, you have been muted. Can you unmute yourself once?
sorry, I think something happened. Okay. Is it audible now?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So where did I got muted?
Just 1 second ago. So
Okay. So I think nothing missed out. So what I was mentioning that there's a detailed schema. This is only a snapshot of the schema, but there's a detailed schema which has been issued by the government. So there you can look into the details that which is the mandatory. They have already given you the specifications, what is mandatory, what is non-mandatory. So I think that answered the question of the participant.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Moving forward. This is the thing which is, which we need to, as a taxpayer, understand that what is IRN and what is QR code. Like I mentioned that IRN is 64-digit string, which is based on these 4 details: the seller's GSTIN number, the document date, the document number, and the financial year. So this is something, the document number, this is answering the question which, or the myth which came up that you need not generate any invoice number. So this is one of the elements which will be used by the government to generate the unique IRN number. And for the understanding of the participant, it is not going to be a very simple, adding up of the 4 elements that like you had the GSTIN number that pehle those digit was stayed, beech mein PAN, last mein another few digits, etc. were there. So this is going to be a unique algorithm, hash algorithm will be used, and a normal human being cannot do it. So there has to, the government is using a software which is going to be used to generate this. So don't think that you can do it at your end and generate it and mention it's just the combination of 4 elements. The answer is no. It is something which has to be done through an application, and it will not be just a simple summation of these 4 elements. Now, another thing which the government has mandated and which is going to come back from the government is the QR code, that scan image kind of a thing. So they will not give the image. Government is only going to give the string, which is to be converted into image by the internal softwares. And of course, if you're using any solution or service provider, they will help you to do that as well. Within that string, these 8 details are being used: seller's GSTIN number, recipient's GSTIN number, invoice number, date of invoice, invoice value, number of line items, HSN code of main item, and IRN. So there was one doubt which was always there, that whether we should be printing both IRN and QR code, because many people were finding it difficult to fit those 64 digits in their invoicing system. So later on, the government had clarified this thing, that there is no need to print both the IRN as well as QR code. You can only have a QR code printed on the invoices, because when you scan the QR code, the IRN number will already be there. Now, in case you still feel to do it, there is no restriction that you cannot do it. There is no mandate from the government, but optionally, if you want to have an IRN number field separately and QR code separately, you can definitely have it. Now, there is one very specific requirement or maybe restriction from the government side when we were discussing that the invoice number, etc., has to be generated in-house. None of the invoice number can start from 0 or the special character like hash and dash. So I'll tell you why this question was coming up. In past, many a times it has so happened that in a particular invoice, as per the law, this is a very common scenario which was seen in the industry business scenario, and that's why I'm discussing this. If you are having any any transaction where you are having multiple POS, so as per the law, while it was not so hard-coded written in the law, but the portal was not allowing you to have 2 POS in one invoice. So let's say if you're making a supply and one supply is POS is Delhi, another supply's POS is Haryana. So technically, if you were reporting this invoice, it was getting rejected, or the portal would take only one line item and leave the other one. So in that case, what the taxpayers were doing, and it was also suggestion or the practice which was followed in the industry, that just add 1 0 in front of that same invoice number, so it becomes a unique invoice for the portal, and then you can report it. Now, this kind of a practice will not be able to be followed. You will not be able to follow this practice, because for the purpose of e-invoicing, you cannot have the 0 hash and stash in the invoices in the first digit of the invoice. Subsequent is fine, but it should not start from these 3 characters. Therefore, now in this particular scenario, which the people were following and they were not changing their system, will be bound to make those changes. Now, if you're having 2 POS in a particular invoice, you need to have 2 separate invoices. Otherwise, this portal is not going to take 2 POS also, and it will get rejected also. This is a requirement for the taxpayers above 500 crore, but I'll just discuss because I'm not sure if we are having some participants falling in this category as well. Like I mentioned, IRN and QR code for the B2B supplies. B2B means when we are making it to the registered recipients, that has to be reported to the IRP. And for only those supplies, IRP is going to give you the IRN and the QR code. But yes, we all know that it's not that the business make supplies only to B2B. There could be scenarios of B2C as well. So in those cases, there is no requirement for giving these details to the government. So anyways, for the taxpayers having turnover more than 100 crores are anyways not required to do it. But this could be relevant for those participants who want to know about the taxpayers above 500 crore. In those cases, the government has made a mandate for the taxpayers to generate the QR code, or I would say dynamic QR code within their own system. So this is something which is a requirement which the government has imposed on the taxpayers using their own business infrastructure. Government is not going to take this, and you cannot even optionally send it to the portal. Like you think that let me send it, let's see how it reacts. It will not even take the details of the B2C supplies. So this dynamic QR code is something that has to be generated in your own ERP, and many service providers can help you do it. So you can just see how you can figure it out and do it for yourself. The only issue that is coming up in today's scenario is that what should be the parameters to generate this dynamic QR code. So till date, the government has not yet clarified. Initially, there was a discussion going on that let's use those almost similar parameters which are there for B2B, but we have still not got any clarification from the government authorities that what is, because this dynamic QR code which they are talking is somewhat relating to the scanning codes, etc., which you use for the payments. So there is no clarity on this aspect, and we expect the government to quickly come back with those requirements that what is it that they want a taxpayer to use as the parameters for generating these QR code, the dynamic QR code for B2C supplies.
Geetika, can I add something here?
Yeah, please, sir.
Yeah, basically here they would it's something similar to what we are scanning at the various shops, etc. Like Paytm or Beam app. Using these apps, we scan the QR code, and then the name of the seller comes, and we key in the amount. But through this QR code, that will be for B2C, that will not be required. Even the amount will come, and we will just have to press an OK. So that is what will be there in this B2C supplies QR code, which will have to be generated by the person himself, because the data is not uploaded at the portal.
Right. So this detail is not to be sent to the portal. It has to be done in-house by your own business, your own software, or maybe with the help of any service provider who can do it for you. Now, there are certain, I would say there were disputes, but more than disputes, it is some, doubts which are coming in the minds of the taxpayers that there are certain requirements which is there in the e-invoicing, and how we need to tackle in with those requirements, or maybe, those scenarios in the business setup. So like in our exempted slide, the applicability slide, we saw that they have exempted the requirement of e-invoice for the SEZ unit, but they did not do it for the SEZ developer. Now, this is something which the industry is, they want to discuss this with the authorities. Authorities have not given any answer why they have distinguished, because the, I would say the status of an SEZ unit and SEZ developer is almost similar. And moreover, if any SEZ unit, if they are not doing any exports, so it's a presumption that SEZ units will only do the exports. So exports why should we take the information? While they are required to do all the invoicing, etc., under the GST law, there could be situation that SEZ unit is making supplies to DTA. Now, those supplies, you are completely keeping them out of the ambit. And there is no as such, justification which is coming from the government that why, they have kept them out. And if they have kept units out, why they have not kept the developers out? Because there would be many, taxpayers who would be just developers and not the units. So if they want to give the relaxation should be given to both the units and the developer. So this is something which has still not been answered, and we are looking forward from the government that whether they are going to bring back this exemption for the developers also or not. Otherwise, there should be some reason that why they are not bringing it for the developer. Another issue or doubt which is coming up is that when I'm generating the invoice, I need to generate the invoice IRN within 24 hours, right? So, sorry, I need to generate the invoice IRN number, and I think for now the 500 crores and above, the relaxation was there, but otherwise you have 1 day or 2 days time. I'm not sure, some region changes. So within that time limit only, you need to generate the IRN number. So, which is the date which will be used by the portal to, report the details in the GSTR1? So, typical example, if I take that my invoice date is 30th of November, and I have, let's say, 24 hours timeline to generate the IRN. I generated on 1st December. So whether the government is going to report, take the invoice date for reporting my GSTR details on my GSTR1, or it is going to take the IRN details for reporting it to into my GSTR1. So this is something which the taxpayers are still not clear about, and they are a little worried about that whether for the invoices on the 30th November itself, we should generate the IRN on the same date, so that whatever supplies we are making, we should report it. Or this can be used otherwise also, if government thinks of, taking the IRN number, then this could be there could be a practice of people, generating invoices on the last dates and, pushing the IRN number on the next month. So this ambiguity is there, and this is something which we need to know when GSTR1 gets auto-populated from time to time basis. Like for the past period, we got to know that it was supposed to be generated on 13th of the month, but it did not populated the entire data. So that's something which is a technical issue which is happening, but we are still, yet to get the answer for this particular issue. Another issue which again maybe very I would say more like an academic issue, that for the importers, imports of the goods and transactions, they have kept the invoicing requirement out, but why they have not kept it out for the export of goods? So what our understanding is that because there are transactions, government wants to keep a check on the export data, and there would be various scenarios where the taxpayers who are exporting goods or services may go for the refund. So whether they are exporting with payment of tax or whether they are exporting without payment of tax and taking refund of the ITC. So government needs to have that backup with them. So while in the law and in their various clarification, they said that if, the transaction is not with the registered party, there is no need to generate the IRN, like in B2C cases. For export, they have given a special category, even if they are kind of a B2C, but they have been given a special status sort of a thing. Even in our monthly returns, we see that we have a specific table for export. It's not clubbed with the B2C. So this is something which we'll have to live with and understand the objective of the government, why they are asking for this information. Another issue which was very common, which was coming when, in past period when we were looking into the schema, where should we report various reimbursements? When I talk about reimbursement, it means more like a pure agent services, when you are just collecting payments and making the payments on behalf of someone else. And similarly, the TCS, the income tax TCS. Because in today's schema, there is no specific field to capture these requirements. So therefore, what the government has clarified, and even in our practical scenario, we had advised to the customers or the clients that these details can be shown under other charges, which is outside the entire tax schema. So they have given a specific field for other charges. So any transaction or any amount which is not attracting the GST and is part of your invoice, you can show it under the reimbursement, sorry, other charges. So like pure agency charges, your TCS charges, or maybe any other charge that for which you are not charging, you can specifically show it under other charges. So this will just go as a optional fee to the e-invoicing portal, and they will consider only the taxable charges and other fields, the mandatory fields, and generate the IRN for you. Few again more like a practical questions which have been asked by the industry players is, in case you are amending the invoice IRN, the invoice number, and whether you need to sign it or not, because there is one thing that IRN cannot be amended on the IRP portal. This is something which we need to understand. Let's say if you have made any error, so you cannot amend the e-invoices on the portal. The only possibility is to cancel them within 24 hours. And in case you miss that deadline, then the only option left with you is to generate the credit note and issue a new invoice. So the question which is coming corresponding to this one is that if I am issuing another invoice, because let's say I am amending my e-invoice, whether I need to sign it or not. There is no clarity on that, because in the main invoice you are already signing. So according to us, if you are making any changes in the or I would not say the changes in the e-invoicing, because e-invoice any which ways you'll cancel and generate a new one. So amended invoice or any correct invoice needs to have the signature. Then we have, other than invoice, debit and credit notes, we also have certain documents like receipt vouchers, the refund vouchers, etc. When you are, receipt voucher, when you are taking an advance, when you don't issue the invoice. So whether you need to have an e-invoice or not. As per the government, in their clarifications, they have not clearly excluded these documents, but there is no explicit mention also of these documents. So there is no clarity, because when you report the advances or you pay the taxes on the advances, you need to do it only when the final invoice is issued. The last one is very important, and more not from a supplier's point of view, more from a recipient point of view, that eligibility of ITC if the invoice is not issued by the supplier. So most of the time we think that something which is, as a requirement as a supplier, we need not think about these vendors, our suppliers. So it's only on my outward, we tend to forget the inward. But please be sure that if you are taking any credits, in those credits, the suppliers, and if suppliers have not generated the IRN number, if they are mandated to do that, then it's certainly going to affect your ITC, because this is what the government intends to do. They intend to see that the entire chain of taxpayers, which is operating in this entire ecosystem, who is not complying, and if the person is not complying, then whether the credit or the benefit which is being passed on to the taxpayer is valid or not. So as a recipient, you have to be very careful that you need to get the vendor invoices with the IRN number, but please make sure that the vendor is required to do it. You cannot just have every vendor to do it, even if it is not required to do it. But the answer is that yes, your eligibility of ITC will get affected. And like I mentioned, that entire data is transparent to the government, whatever is going and whatever is not going. So definitely, if you take the ITC, the government is going to come back with the queries and litigate all the credits that you're taking. Other practical issues which we have seen in our day-to-day discussions with our clients, in many of the cases there could be in transit damage, or there is a reverse movement of goods before they reach the client's place, the customer place. So what happens in today's scenario? What is happening is that usually these goods, they move back on delivery challan, and the original invoice etc. is cancelled and new invoice is issued, because it remains in their system. The customer has not received the goods, and in many cases it's also happened that the gate inward has not happened. The customer on the gate only has discarded or maybe rejected the goods, and there is no trace of goods being received at the customer end. So in today's scenario, the goods were moving back on the DC, the delivery challan. Now, with the e-invoicing coming in, this practice would need some change. Today, if you are issuing an invoice, this invoice gets reported. And once it gets reported, you need to pay the taxes. And if you do a reverse movement of delivery challan, there will not be any trace of those goods coming back into the, in the plant or from wherever the goods have moved. So you end up paying taxes and sorry, before I go on to the tax payment, the minute you move the second movement of the goods, like in case of rejected goods, when you move second tranche of goods, again you will generate the invoice, e-bill, etc. then again you'll have to pay the tax. Now you don't have a mechanism to adjust it. In today's scenario, what used to happen that you generated invoice, you cancel it, you don't report it in system anywhere. It's only while doing your monthly returns, you know, acha, ye wala invoice got cancelled, the goods got rejected, they came back. I'll not report this invoice because it is all in your control. But once this data starts going into the government portal, you cannot just leave it hanging that, you know, there is one invoice in the system, you forget it, you move into DC and then you generate another. You'll get a lot of queries from the department and then you keep on explaining them, no, this good got damaged, this got rejected, etc. So according to us, the prudent practice should be that in after e-invoicing coming into play, once your goods are coming back, please have a credit note generated. And because this credit note is also going to be reported on the e-invoicing portal, the government will have the traces of both the transaction, the goods going to the customer location, goods coming back from the customer location. So this gets knocked off, and therefore there will not be any reconciliation issues or the queries coming from the department. Second issue, generation of IRN with incorrect details. Like I mentioned, in this case, you can, make the, you can cancel the invoice, e-invoice within 24 hours. In case you cannot do it, then you need to do a credit note and then you need to generate another invoice. And another issue that comes up, or maybe which the people have been discussing, that can I use the same invoice number which has been cancelled for generating the fresh invoice? The answer is no. You'll have to have a new invoice number because the portal is not going to accept the cancelled invoice number which you have already cancelled in the portal. Now, there are many issues, many cases where, you know, single invoice with multiple transactions are there, taxable, exempt, and different rates, etc. So exempt supplies and all, you can definitely, you can show them, but because it's a bill of supply, so there should not be any challenge. Wherever there's a taxable supply, the reporting will happen and the IRN will be generated. So should not be any problem in that case. Another issue about the mechanism of B2C dynamic QR code, Rajiv sir has already explained how this is going to work because government as such has not given, but sir being into the technology space knows it, how it can be done even in case of B2C transactions. Another thing, whether IRN and QR code both needs to be printed. Initially, this was all in discussion. Initially, the government was saying you need to print both IRN QR code, but like I clarified in the earlier slide, now the government is saying that you can have only QR code. The mandate is only QR code to be printed because once you scan the QR code, you get the IRN detail also. But if you want to have both of them on the invoices, it's your prerogative. There is no restriction under the law because you are meeting the mandate of the government. Apart from that, any additional information you want to have in your invoice, you are free to have it. So it's your business invoice, provided it's meeting all the GST tax requirements. Now, any questions on this slide or any related to this particular issues? Okay, I'll move on. Now, after understanding this entire concept of e-invoicing, what should be the action point for you as the clients? The first and the foremost thing that please go back and check your ERP systems, whether you have all the fields, which is mandatory or conditional mandatory subject to the requirements, whether you're having all those fields in your ERP system so that when you are generating the e-invoice, you have those data readily available in front of you and you can send it to the portal for the generation of e-invoicing. If you don't have, then please, get the additional fields added. Talk to your ERP guys, get them added. And if certain fields are not there, figure out how you can, do it through transformation. There are various mechanisms available in the software space to get the data. So there should not be any challenge because most of the information that they are asking is usually used in the filing of GSTR1 and freebies. So even if you feel that there is certain thing which is not there, just revisit your ERP details and the field, the e-invoice schema, and look into the details which are missing and get them added. Another thing, I'm sure this facility is going to be there, but just go back and check whether your ERP is easily convert, upload and download the JSON files, because when you are using the offline facilities, you need to download the utility and convert it in JSON file and send. Or maybe if you are doing just 1 or 2 invoices, then again you need to generate a JSON file and send it. Then apart from changing your ERP system, you need to update your billing modules also. Why billing modules are required to be updated? Like I said, that there is a requirement of having the QR code printed on the invoice. So just figure out if you have enough space to fix that QR code on the invoice, because in certain cases we have seen that invoices are already having so much of information that having a QR code printed, it's a little difficult. So maybe just need to go and see that where you can place the QR code on the invoice so as to meet the requirement. And for the taxpayers who want to have even IRN printed on the invoice, please see if the field is big enough or lengthy enough to accommodate the 64 digits of the IRN number. Now your accounts payable process, again, accounts payable process, why it's important. Your AP team, the team which is dealing with the vendors, and the next point is consequent to this only, that you need to instruct your AP team that before they are making payment to any of the suppliers, please go back and check that whether they are mandated to have an IRN generated or not. If yes, whether they have generated it or not. If no, then please communicate to the vendors and tell them that the payments, etc., will be made only after the IRN details are there. And for that matter, as a precautionary step, I think most of you would have done it during the implementation of GST also. Please start having those vendor profiling and vendor communications initiated. Figure out, the portal gives you the facility to search the details of the taxpayers who have to generate the IRN number. So find out, categorize your vendors, figure out that who all are covered, because not everyone is falling. We all know there's a threshold. So if the vendor is not required, you can flag them separately. And those vendors who are required to generate the e-invoice, please flag them, communicate with them, tell them that according to the portal, they are required to generate the IRN. And if they will not generate the IRN on time, or they give the invoices without having the IRN, then as a commercial purpose, you'll not be able to take the credit, in which case, the payments, etc., might be held. So this is more like a commercial transaction. You can have the kind of language you wish to have with your vendors, but ensure that you have all the invoices where you have to take the credits are either having IRN, or if IRN is not required, take a undertaking or an indemnity bond from your vendors to get it certified or maybe indemnified that they are not falling under the requirement. And if there is any misdeclaration at their end, then they are supposed to indemnify you in case of any litigation which is coming from the department, because certainly your credits are going to be disputed if the supplier has not met the compliances. Then data capturing, this is something which we just checked, we just talked about having additional fields that ensure that the QR code and if optional IRN you want to have, it is getting accommodated in your invoice, because the invoice that you're going to issue to the customer should have at least the QR code printed on it. Because if you don't do it, even your customers are going to push back, and they will come back to you and say that this is not a invoice as per the law, and we will not make you the payments, or maybe we'll not be able to take the credits. So just ensure that you are meeting those requirements and get into the systems and make those changes. The last one is more like a advocacy. Wherever you feel like that there is a particular scenario where you're finding it difficult, because according to us, the government has done enough research and they have looked into various business scenarios and have not left any gap in generation of e-invoicing. But still, there could be certain areas where they would not have got into much of the details. If you think that you need to get those things, then please represent it to the authorities, tell them, update them, because they will also not have insights of everything which is happening in the entire ecosystem. So if you have any typical scenario, go back to them and tell them that this is something where we are facing problem, or this is something which is challenging for us. They will definitely come back with some solution for you. Now, this is from my side. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Geetika ma'am. And I think we'll come back to you in regards to the doubts. We received a lot of doubts earlier before the webinar began through the the registration site, and I think you have fixed most of those doubts. Rajiv sir, now it's up to you. Now we would like to show you a solution, how integration after integration invoicing generation would be looking like. For that, we have CA Rajiv Khandelwalji, who's the director of Webtel Electroscope Private Limited, with us. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Shubham. And it was a wonderful session by Geetika ji. And I think most of the doubts were cleared. And now let us have some practical demonstration. I have also a few points to add. But I think the practical demonstration is very important. So we'll right away begin with the practical demonstration. So now let us see how things will happen in SAP.
As I've already mentioned that our software is
I'll share my screen.
Yeah, our software is integrated with most of
And
the.
now let us see how
Yeah,
things will happen in SAP. So we'll just now see that. This is the cockpit of SAP. And here either we can generate the invoices, a particular number of invoice, or a particular offer, a particular plant, etc. We can put in the details and generate e-invoices from here immediately. Or we have another option, go to the dashboard, and in the dashboard all the invoices will be appearing. I'll just show you that also. Like this, all the invoices are appearing. For the top portion, you can see IRN has already been generated in all these cases. Now let us try and generate for two invoices, 76 and 77. I'll try and generate for those. I'll click these, and even from here itself you can go and drill down and see the various details if you want to check the invoice first. So I'll select this invoice, number 76 and 77, and go to generate IRN here and generate an e-invoice. And see, the e-invoice has already been generated for 76 number, and for 77 there is some error. We'll just now see that also. So first of all, the one which has been generated, let us see how this e-invoice looks like. We will click on this. The PDF document will be generated from the file load that we have received, the payload that we have received from the department. And here you can see the QR code is there, the other necessary details with the HSN code, etc. So these things are there. So, and the other one, the error that we have received, we need to check the error and we need to correct the invoice again. And we will try and do that first. HSN is not correct, or the IGST should have been there, it is not there. Before that, let us first try and cancel the invoice, because many of you would like to cancel an invoice also if there is a problem, cancel the IRN. In that case, we can do that also. So we'll just now see. So as of now, the proper invoice is there. Now let us try and cancel the IRN. So we will go to cancel IRN facility, and it says the cancel remark is required. So we have to put in why we are canceling it. So there is a drop down. You can select the necessary entry, whether it is duplicate entry or some other error is there, and some remarks that we need to give for this that we will put in. Select this particular line item and again cancel IRN. And we will see that the IRN has now been cancelled. Let us also open the PDF. Does any change happen now? Let us see. Here, when you go down, you will see the watermark cancelled is there. Obviously, this invoice has been cancelled. IRN has been cancelled, and this is no longer usable. Now let us go to the next one where the error was there in invoice number 78, and let us 77. And let us try and find out and remove this error so that we can generate it again. The HSN code we will correct. The IGST amount which should have been there, which was not there earlier, has been put in. Now we will try and generate it again like this. generate IRN. And now we will see that the IRN has been generated for this invoice also. The error has been. So it is that simple. It's a seamless process. It is as if you are doing from the system itself, and even you can drill down to the invoice, see the terms and conditions, whether everything is correct or not. So all these facilities are there from this very buttons which are there. You don't have to go to a separate screen for all these things. All this information can be seen, checked, and then if it, obviously if it's proper, we can upload the data. So this was how we can generate e-invoices, and similarly we can generate e-invoices for other ERPs also, even for Tally, Busy, etc. Also we can do that. So that was the about the question. They can do that. We will unmute them once they are raising their hands. So Shubham, let us start this session.
Sure, sir. Sir, can you stop sharing your screen, please?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I think Rajiv.
We're also running a poll. All of you can answer in the poll so that we can know about your preparedness and how we can help you in that.
So a poll will be displayed on your screen. We have a few questions for a better experience. So please reply on this poll. And Rajiv sir showed us the integration and the seamless generation of invoicing from the ERP SAP. Now, just like this, with the single click of a button, just like you used to create the invoices, we have seamless integration for most of the ERPs. And we are delivering the entire project within 7 days of time. So in case you know more, you just need to scan this QR code on your screens, or you can simply call the number which is displayed below. I've also shared a link in the chat section. You can click on that link and you'll reach out to me. And
Shubham, before proceeding to the question answer session, I have few points to make. One
Please,
is
sir.
that the people who are 100 crores and more, time is very less for them. We have barely a month, and 1st January onwards, invoicing is become mandatory for them also. So they need to begin right away if they've not already done that. And others also, I think, should. There are few people who are saying it's not applicable to us. तो उनका 100 करोड़ से भी कम टर्नओवर है, बट उनके लिए भी जिस तरह से चीजें चल रही हैं, गवर्नमेंट ने इमीडिएटली जब सक्सेसफुल हो गया 500 करोड़ से ज्यादा वाला, तो उन्होंने 1 जनवरी से 100 करोड़ एंड अबव वालों के लिए भी मैंडेटरी कर दिया. तो इट विल it seems that the next date, 1st April, which they are intending for all others, may be possible. और उसमें हो सकता है कोई एक और slab बना दें, but as of now thinking is, since it's been quite successful, 500 crores and more के बहुत successfully sub invoice people have been able to upload, and things are working very smoothly. The help of various service providers like Webtel, who are in providing end-to-end integration to the clients. और इसमें generally क्योंकि ये बिग कॉर्पोरेट्स हैं और इनके स्मॉलर नंबर ऑफ इनवॉइसेस नहीं होते, इस वजह से ये लोग ज्यादातर हमारे साथ इंटीग्रेशन में जा रहे हैं, क्योंकि इसमें एंड टू एंड इंटीग्रेशन है. ऑब्वियसली एक्सेल फाइल में आप पूरा डेटा डालेंगे, कॉपी पेस्ट करेंगे, उसमें वैलिडेशंस होते हैं, कई सारे इश्यूज होते हैं और प्रॉब्लम्स आती हैं. जो हम आपको पूरा इंटीग्रेशन फैसिलिटी वेबटेल दे रहा है, उसमें आपको कोई भी प्रॉब्लम नहीं होगी. और hundreds and thousands and lakhs of invoices, they are all being generated as e-invoices within no time. तो ये सब फैसिलिटी है. और दूसरा जो मैं कह रहा हूँ, जिन लोगों को भी अभी एप्लीकेबल नहीं है, उन लोगों को भी तैयारी करने की जरूरत है, क्योंकि जैसे गीतिका जी बता रही थी कि बहुत सारी प्रैक्टिकल चीजें हैं. ऑब्वियसली स्टैट्यूटरी चीजें तो हैं ही हैं जिनका हमें ध्यान रखना है. अदर देन दैट देयर आर अदर प्रैक्टिकल थिंग्स आल्सो. कहने को छोटी सी बात है कि आपको जो इनवॉइस है उसमें क्यूआर कोड छापना है, और IRN अगर आप छापना चाहते हैं, बट उसके लिए जगह होनी चाहिए, आपको उसको रीडिजाइन करना पड़ेगा. तो इस तरह की जो प्रैक्टिकल चीजें हैं जो आपने अभी तक शायद सोची भी नहीं होगी, उसके बारे में आप इमीडिएटली सोचना शुरू कर दीजिए और गेट इन टच विद योर accounting package provider or the ERP or Webtel is there to help you on in all these things. तो इन चीजों के बारे में सोचें. And finally, one last point to make: the practicing chartered accountants. Many a times, some people have talked to me कि as chartered accountants इसमें हमारा क्या काम है? Generally, it is between the client and the service provider like Webtel. आप लोग देखिए इसमें हमने क्या करना है. आपको इसलिए देखना है कि you should ensure that things are happening properly और जो भी चीजें हो रही हैं क्योंकि उसका far reaching consequences हैं. उसका जो GSTR1 बनेगा उसी से बनेगा. आगे ई-वे बिल भी बहुत सारे केसेस में उसी से बन रहे हैं और आगे गवर्नमेंट ये आपको और बता दूं कि वेरी सून इट विल बी मेड मैंडेटरी कि आप जहां ई इनवॉइस जनरेट कर रहे हैं वहां आईआरएन के थ्रू ही आपको ई-वे बिल बनाना पड़ेगा. जो डायरेक्टली जाके आप ई-वे बिल बना देते हैं तो नहीं बना पाएंगे. ऑलरेडी दैट फैसिलिटी हैज बीन गिवन बाय द गवर्नमेंट और वो 7 दिसंबर को लाइव हो जाएगी. तो इसलिए और ये सब इंटीग्रेशन का इसलिए और भी जरूरी है, इसलिए आपको जो हम ई-वे बिल सोल्यूशन भी प्रोवाइड कर रहे हैं और ई-इनवॉइस का भी प्रोवाइड कर रहे हैं तो वो कंबाइंड सोल्यूशन का आप यूज करिए ताकि एक सीमलेस एक्सपीरियंस हो आपके लिए. So with that, I will end here and immediately move to the question answer session. And Geetika ji is requested to answer the questions. बीच में कहीं मेरी जरूरत हुई तो मैं भी जवाब दे दूँ.
Sure, sir.
Thank you, sir. So I think, sir, already we have taken most of the questions. Just in case if anything is missed, we'll take it. And along with that, if anyone wants to ask the question directly, they can simply raise their hands and we'll unmute.
एक इम्पोर्टेंट क्वेश्चन था. देयर वाज एन इम्पोर्टेंट क्वेश्चन कि हमें इसका अगर ई इनवॉइस मैंडेटरी है जिससे मैं माल खरीद रहा हूँ, परचेजर और द सप्लायर, वो अगर ई इनवॉइस मेरे को नहीं देता तो क्या मेरे को आईटीसी मिलेगा? आई थिंक गीतिका वी वोंट गेट द आईटीसी इन दैट केस, राइट?
Yes, sir. In fact, the last question, the last point which I answered was this only, that your IT, this was a doubt which most of the industry players were raising, and considering the intention of the government, we are a clear understanding that the ITC will be denied if the invoice is not carrying these mandatory requirements, which one of which is this QR code.
And somebody had also asked कि कौन सा इसमें section या rule है. So rule 48 sub rule 5 states that every invoice issued by a person to whom e-invoicing is applicable in any manner other than the manner specified, that is the e-invoice, shall not be treated as an invoice. उसको invoice ही नहीं माना जाएगा.
Correct.
Obviously जब invoice ही नहीं है तो ITC तो कैसे मिलेगा?
Correct. And in fact, in the ITC section itself, it says that it should be the tax invoice as per the law. And therefore, correspondingly, when we see, if it is not meeting the requirements of the law, it is not an invoice. If it is not an invoice, you don't get the credit.
Right. Sir, we have a few people who have raised their hands. So I'm starting with Paresh Kangrana ji. I'm unmuting him. Sir, please unmute yourself. Sir, please introduce yourself and then ask the query.
I am Haresh Kagrana, Chartered Accountant from Mumbai. My question is, as Madam said, when the goods sent and not accepted by customer due to damage, then the same goods has to be reversed again to supplier. In that case, Madam suggested to issue credit note. So my question is, when for issuing credit note and getting adjustment of GST element, one of the requirement is that supplier should record credit note and reverse the GST. So how that condition will be complied in such situation? Because in the first instance, supplier will not book my invoice. He will also not book my credit note.
Correct, sir. So in your case, see, I'll tell you why this requirement is there. I'll go back to the basics which I discussed, that in today's scenario, when you are sending a goods and you are issuing invoice,
Right.
You once that's damaged or for any reason it is coming back, we do it under DC. That's correct, right? So under DC, goods moved are there. And what happens is that when you're doing your monthly filing in your system manually, you know that for this particular invoice, maybe you go back into ERP, you cancel that invoice.
Yes.
Right. So till today or before the implementation of e-invoicing, this was the practice which was being adopted across the industry.
Yes, agree.
So now in this situation, the government doesn't even get to know about this particular invoice on which the goods have gone out and come back.
Correct.
Right, because it remains in your system. You
Agreed.
you issue invoice, you get bring back it on DC. That is also because of the e-waybill requirements. अगर वो नहीं होती तो वो भी नहीं आप कर रहे होते, सीधा सीधा goods आ जाते हैं, right? तो अब वो requirement की वजह से आपको जब तक आप ही के सिस्टम में डेटा रहता है तब तक कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं होती है.
Agreed, madam. Agreed.
अभी क्या हो रहा है कि जैसे ही आप इनवॉइस इशू कर देते हो, अब जरूरी नहीं है ना कि आपके गुड्स जो है वो विदिन 24 आवर्स ही पहुंच जाए. अगर वो विदिन 24 आवर्स पहुंच जाके और बीच में वापस आ रहे हैं तो कैंसिलेशन का एक ऑप्शन अडॉप्ट कर सकते हैं, आप तुरंत कैंसिल कर दीजिए. बट मान लीजिए दूर दूर जा रहे हैं तो 2-3 हफ्ता टाइम लग जाता है. तो क्या हुआ, जब आपने ये इनवॉइस इशू किया, इस पे ई-वेबिल भी इशू हुआ, अब ये दोनों इन्फॉर्मेशन जो है गवर्नमेंट के पास चली गई और गवर्नमेंट ने GSTR 1 में भी अपने चिपका दी. ठीक है, अब आपने क्या किया, आपने जब रिवर्स किया तो आपने DC पे कर लिया. फिर क्या हुआ, जब दोबारा अच्छे सही गुड्स गए तो आपने फिर से एक इनवॉइस इशू किया, सब कुछ किया. अब क्या हो रहा है, आप क्या करोगे, फिर से आप मंथली रिटर्न में मान लीजिए आपके GSTR 1 में वो प्री पॉपुलेटेड आ रहा है, तो आप क्या करोगे, वो एडिटेबल होगा, ऐसा नहीं है कि वो फ्रीज हो जाएंगे नंबर्स. आप क्या करोगे, आप वो पुराना वाला इनवॉइस हटा दोगे क्योंकि अब आपके सिस्टम में वो कैंसिल है.
सॉरी टू इंटरप्ट, ये जो ऑटोमेटिक अपलोड होगा दैट इज एडिटेबल.
यस, दैट इज एडिटेबल. आपको पूरा वो मिलेगा एडिट वेडिट करने का, ऐसा कुछ नहीं गवर्नमेंट उसको फ्रीज कर देगी. क्योंकि कई बार बहुत सारी इन्फॉर्मेशन ऐसी होती है जो आप ऐड करना चाहोगे, कुछ करना चाहोगे, तो वो बेसिक इन्फॉर्मेशन आप ये भी देखो कि आपके GSTR 1 में जो रिक्वायरमेंट्स है, ऐसा नहीं है कि वो 100% ई-इनवॉइसिंग में जा रही हैं, वो कुछ लिमिटेड फील्ड्स ही ले रहे हैं. तो GSTR के लिए हो सकता है कुछ एडिशनल फील्ड्स भी रहेंगी, तो वो आपको एडिटेबल फील्ड दी जाएगी. आप क्या करोगे, आप उसको वो कर दोगे, हटा दोगे. अब क्या होगा, जैसे गवर्नमेंट पीछे से आपकी रिटर्न और अपना डेटा मैच करेगी तो क्या देखेगी, अरे इधर तो इसने ये इनवॉइस नहीं रिपोर्ट किया है. दिस विल ओनली लीड टू हैविंग क्वेरीज एंड लिटिगेशन एटसेट्रा फ्रॉम द डिपार्टमेंट. सो दिस इज अ बेस्ट प्रैक्टिस एंड ऑल विच वी आर सेइंग दैट आप ये करो. नाउ कमिंग टू योर क्वेश्चन, दैट क्रेडिट नोट के लिए रिक्वायरमेंट होती है कि उसने जो क्रेडिट लिया है वो रिवर्स करना है, राइट? दिस वाज योर क्वेश्चन, Harish sir?
Yeah, please go.
Correct. So now in that is again a conditional requirement. अगर उसने क्रेडिट लिया है तो रिवर्स करना है. अब उसने क्रेडिट नहीं लिया तो रिवर्स की सिचुएशन ही नहीं आती है. बट for you to do the cancellation or the reversal of your main invoice, the requirement is still there कि आप क्रेडिट नोट कर लो.
Yeah, right.
So I'll also give you a parallel example. Forget about e-invoicing scenario or anything. There are various transactions जिसपे आप क्रेडिट नहीं भी लेते हैं. Take a rent a cab for your employees का transportation. उसमें मान लीजिए अगर अपने सप्लायर ने या आप ही सप्लाई कर रहे हैं रेंट अ कैब सर्विस, आपने कोई गलत इनवॉइस कर दिया और आप क्रेडिट करना चाहते हैं, या देयर इज सम नेगोशिएशन और प्राइसिंग विद द कस्टमर, तो उन केसेस में भी क्लाइंट तो क्रेडिट नहीं लेता है. बट अगर देयर इज सम चेंज इन इनवॉइस फॉर द वैल्यू, टैक्सेस एटसेट्रा दैट हैज टू बी डन, you will still issue the credit note. So reversal of credit is required only when someone has taken the credit, but that doesn't restrict you from doing a credit note if the person has not taken credit at all.
Right. Next we have Gulshan Ranjan ji. I've asked him to unmute. Gulshan ji, please unmute yourself. Please introduce you, sir, and ask the question, sir. We are very short of time. Ranjan ji, please ask. Okay, so not.
Ranjan ji, are you on mute? Just in case maybe he's speaking and.
No, he's unmuted. Chalo, we'll move to RK Gupta ji. RK Gupta ji, I've unmuted you. Please ask your query. Sir.
Yes. You are audible?
Yes.
Myself, CA RK Gupta from Bhiwadi, Rajasthan. Ma'am, if we issue the financial credit note, it is still compulsory to issue online?
No, sir. For the financial credit notes are not supposed to be sent on the portal. The IRN will not be generated because financial credit notes are anyways not falling within the GST requirements.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Most welcome.
Okay.
Sir, next up, I have Krishan Nand Jha ji. Mr. Jha, unmuted you. Okay. Sanjeev ji. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, Haji.
Kenja from CA Sky.
Sir, please repeat. Krishan ji.
Kenja from CA Sky.
Yes, sir.
Please go ahead.
Question.
Yeah, we are related to service provider. Our some revenues are generated at overseas. Presently, our some revenues are generated at overseas.
Okay.
How can we raise invoice to our overseas agent?
Okay, sir. The question, so the issue is that you don't have to raise the e-invoice. You have to get the IRN details on the invoice that you raise on your overseas. And in case that is qualifying as an export, this has been specifically covered under the requirement of the e-invoicing.
No, it is related with import shipments.
Import. So
Yeah,
for import, there is no requirement of generating the invoice. The government has very much clarified.
No. Suppose any shipment is coming on freight collect basis, our agent collected freight on our behalf. So how we can get from there if we do not issue invoice to them?
To whom? To agent or to the overseas?
Yeah. Because our accounting is with overseas counterpart agent. And our on monthly basis we are doing their SOA reconciliation, and surplus amount is get remittance to them or we are remitting to them.
No, sir. Sorry, I am.
थोड़ा सा आपका बड़ा स्पेसिफिक सा क्वेश्चन है, इसका अलग से रिप्लाई कर देंगे. एंड आई वुड रिक्वेस्ट कि थोड़े से जेनरिक क्वेश्चंस आप पूछें, स्पेसिफिक आप अलग से वो कर सकते हैं ताकि जो सबके इंटरेस्ट के हों.
Krishan ji, I will display our mail ID at the end. You can write us, and we'll surely will be more than happy to answer that.
Yeah, we need to just understand the transaction in detail.
Yeah, Sanjeev Goski ji.
Yeah. I have actually 3-4 questions. I will ask one by one.
Yeah.
Please, ma'am, please introduce yourself, ma'am. Which city are you from?
I am Sanju Goski calling from Pune.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Can we generate e-way bill before registering on IRP?
Sir, e-way bill anyways is a separate portal, right? You can generate, but at the end of the day, the goods have to travel along with the e-way bill and the tax invoice. Right. So if you don't have an correct or an IRN printed invoice, the e-way bill you can generate it, but only challenge with that you may face is that while in transit there can be some checking etc. during the movement of the goods, and then some officer can highlight this that the goods are not moving with the tax invoice.
Madam, there is provision that after registering IRP, the invoice will be automatically transmitted to GSTR 1. That I learned that process has not started yet.
Yeah, so it is still in process. Like I said that in the month of October, those people who generated their e-invoices for October, ideally on 13th, this automation was supposed to work and the GSTR ones was supposed to be generated, etc. But due to some technical glitches, it got, half of the information got generated, half of it. I think government is working on it because they are also doing it for the first time. So, but at the end of the day, it is only a facilitation measure. It is not that if the data is not generated or reported on the GSTR1, you cannot do it. In case in practical scenario, you find that something is not being reported, you can mention it on your own as well.
Sanjeev ji, just one last question, sir. We are very out of time.
Is there any time limit to raise the invoice on IRP?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Razi Patel.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is my question is I'm working in a company that is an air travel agent. We are a travel agent company.
So okay. From where are you, sir? Which city, sir?
Yeah, I'm from Mumbai.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm working with I'm in taxation department looking after the GST part. So my query is right now, presently, what we are doing, the role is, our role is issuing ticket on behalf of our client. We are a corporate travel agent. So
Okay.
suppose that my client is, you can say, Merit Group or what, Raheja Group. They instruct me to issue the ticket, and we issue the ticket. Against that, we are charging booking fees, our 100 rupees, 50 rupees, whatever be. In the GST portal, we are just showing our taxable element as 100 rupees, because
Correct.
rest element, the ticket cost is a reimbursement cost that we are
Correct.
not showing.
Correct.
So my first query is whether that reimbursement will not consider under turnover criteria, right?
Yeah, that is not your turnover. Your turnover is only the commission fee for the intermediary services that you're giving.
Yes.
That is only the reimbursement. Yeah.
Apart from the air travel agent, we have a license with the Forex RBI, wherein we have 82 license. Okay. So in the 82 license, we are authorized to remit the money, 14 categories allotted to us for education, for medical, etc., etc. And we have in Forex, there is an exemption wherein we can purchase dollar, whatever the currency, from the bank and sell it to other bank. That is called bulk purchase and bulk sale. Okay. So that is exempted. That is exempted. But we are showing in the GST return as exempted.
Correct.
So whether this exempted, see, my company's commission income is approximately 15 crore only commission income, because we are a travel agent. But when if you take this example of bulk purchase and bulk sale, it comes to 400.
Sir, you got muted.
Hello.
Yeah.
Suppose. Hello.
Yes.
I think Geetika यहाँ इनका वो ये कि अगर exempted supplies हैं, तो वो aggregate turnover के लिए count होंगी नहीं होगी, और लोगों की भी queries हैं.
Because you can say my lot is for this Forex division, my one purchase lot is approx 10 crore. When I purchase currency of 10 crore from the bank and sell it to the other bank 10 crore 10,000 only. So my income is only 10,000, but because of this turnover, exempted turnover, whether I will be considered in the EV bill, that is the danger part for me, because my commission income is 15 crore, but my Forex turnover is approximately 400 crore.
ठीक है, Mr. Razi. Geetika, can you want to answer, or it's a very specific field of travel, and that too something very different? So we can take it later on also specifically.
Sir, in general, we can mention that in the aggregate turnover, even the exempt supplies have to be considered. But I think his concern is that because we are having major revenue only on this, maybe purchase and sale of currency and all is a clear, transaction that they are doing. We can just, for their specific transaction, maybe we can just look into some more details if we can say these are only transaction in money or something.
Yes. And secondly, one small question. If a person is going from Mumbai to Pune by car, we are not eligible. We are hiring the car and we are not able to take the credit. Right. But the same way, when we are booking the air flight ticket, then you can able to take the K3 tax benefit. So how it possible? The both are conveys only. One is car, but that is not eligible. But when you are going from the air, then it is eligible.
I'm sorry, sir. That is something that the lawmakers have put as a condition, and this is something.
Government से हमें लड़ाई करना पड़ेगा, उसके लिए आपको representation अपनी association के through भेजना चाहिए.
Correct.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Shubham, one or two more questions, then we can wind up.
Yeah, next question, please.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, myself, Jinesh Mehta. As you mentioned, we need to print QR code on B2C invoices. So what should be the content of that QR code?
इसका मैंने बताया था कि इसमें आपको बेसिकली वो डिटेल्स देनी है, उसमें आपका डिटेल्स आएगा, और जो पर्सन आपसे परचेज कर रहा है उसमें अमाउंट जितना है, नॉर्मली जैसे मैंने कहा अभी हम जाके पेटीएम के थ्रू पेमेंट करते हैं या भीम ऐप के थ्रू पेमेंट करते हैं, वहां आप जब स्कैन करते हैं तो वो उसका नेम वगैरह आ जाता है, लेकिन अमाउंट आपको डालना पड़ता है. इसमें नई चीज ये होगी कि अब अमाउंट भी नहीं डालना पड़ेगा, अमाउंट भी उसके अंदर क्यूआर कोड के अंदर ही होगा. दिस इज द डिफरेंस.
Okay, but that QR code we only the service provider or the taxpayer has to generate from their own IRP, right?
Right. ये कहीं आपको पोर्टल वगैरह पे अपलोड नहीं करना.
Okay, right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mehta ji. I think, sir, we are very out of time, and today's session was very interactive. The credit goes to our expert today, CA Geetika Shrivastava ji. Again, I think most of the people had their doubts cleared, and It's very appreciative that you have come to our portal with such a nice presentation and taken all the doubts of our clients or of the fraternity overall. Thank you so much,
Shubham.
Geetika ji, Rajiv sir.
Yeah. Achha, just one point, Shubham. Can we do one thing, if you feel it correct, that those people whose queries we have not been able to answer right away, can we just send them separately, after the session or maybe in a day?
Yeah, sure. So,
and those who have asked for the direct message and could not connect with us, they can send the queries to Webtel ID, and we'll be definitely coming back with the answers to you.
Ma'am, we'll give them a couple of options. So once, if they want to ask any query, then we have the mail ID in front of them, which is contact@webtel.co.in, or you can WhatsApp at 9711623912. Ma'am, if you want to share your details as well, we can do that.
Yeah, sure. I'll be happy to do that.
Meanwhile, just for the last time, if you haven't finalized your e-invoicing vendor yet, what you need to do is to just scan this QR code and our team will call you back. We have 13 branches, so branches in each and every states, and we'll be happy to serve you. We have a big team of professionals who are working in GST domain and a specified team for e-invoicing integration. We are already having a lot of clients for e-invoicing, as it has already been mandatory from 1st of October to a higher slab rate. So we are expertise in this, and we also offer quick delivery time. As Rajiv sir already mentioned, the time is quite less. Just for the last 20 seconds, I'll share my QR code in case you need to scan it.
Yeah. After that, I'll quickly just display my coordinates so that anyone who wants to reach out to us, they can certainly.
Sure. Here you go, ma'am.
Thank you. So, just a minute. These are our contact coordinates. You can reach out to me at geetika@tatvamadvisors.com. There's a website and there's my contact details, 9818651716. Wherever you feel like that we have not been able to take up your queries and you have any further queries, we'll be happy to help you with that.
Right, ma'am. And ma'am, I would like to see your photograph in this as well.
Certainly, quickly. So very soon you will see it over there.
Rajiv sir, if you want to add
deliberations.
Thank you so much, sir. It's always pleasure to be, giving such presentations and hearing the participants and their doubts. So it's always a learning session for all of us as a group. So thanks to all the participants who came over and asking for such wonderful questions.
Finally, big thanks to the participants for joining in huge numbers and asking the questions to make the webinar interactive. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.